ago, women were cursed to bear the pain of, well, everything. When Eve and Adam were sequestered in the Garden of Eden, they are tricked into eating the forbidden fruit. But since Eve took the first bite, she was seen as weak, and therefore she was cursed to bear the pain of childbirth. And Adam? All Adam had to do was work. Despite this admission from millions of people's God that women were actually cursed with pain, many doctors today still dismiss that pain that women, and particularly women of color, struggle with every day. With a haphazard wave of their hand, millions have their pain written off or their diagnoses rushed and misreported. The British Medical Journal reported that nearly 12 million people are misdiagnosed every year, and that women and minorities are 20 to 30% more likely to be misdiagnosed than their white male counterparts. This failure to take women's pain seriously permeates all aspects of the medical field, from the doctors to the healthcare system, and most importantly, to the women who've placed their lives in the hand of the root of the problem. Unfortunately, this isn't a simple case of finding the right diagnosis. It's about addressing systemic issues within the healthcare system. So today, in order to examine just how dangerous it is for women when their pain is ignored, we'll look at first the issue itself, then how dangerous it actually is, and finally, some solutions, so that doctors finally believe us when we say, yes, this hurts. But apparently, gender isn't the only factor that can inhibit a doctor from treating their patients. Doctors believe that a patient's attractiveness directly correlates to their health, and because of this, I like to think that my stunning beauty is the reason that I was ignored by so many doctors. But I know that it's far more likely because they just wrote me off as a hysterical little girl. But it is because of women's so-called hysteric emotions that they are often dismissed and cast away with barely a second thought. Today, women are 40% more likely to be diagnosed with a mental health issue, and 60% more likely to be diagnosed and prescribed with mood-altering medication. And, well, yes, my emotions and hormones do make me cry and consume chocolate by the truckload. That is no means to justify my mistreatment. In fact, it has been found that estrogen can actually alter the way a body responds to medication. Despite this fact, Diane Hoffman, author of The Girl Who Cried Pain, reported that women were prescribed a lower dose of medication than the men who reported the same amount of pain. And still, women are less likely to be admitted to the hospital in emergency situations and less likely to be referred to specialists. But hey, maybe that's why it takes nearly 4 times as many visits for a woman just to get a diagnosis. This lack of proper care has led many women to move away from traditional medicine and instead to holistic methods, such as acupuncture, meditation, and scream therapy, which is exactly what it sounds like. And while I do like to believe that you can cure a sore throat with honey and hot tea, I don't believe you can cure an ulcer by screaming at it. But since these women are being ignored by modern medicine, they instead move to a form of treatment that can leave them worse off than they started. A 2017 study done by the Oxford Medical Journal found that women who chose alternative medicine instead of modern medicine for a treatment of breast cancer had a 5-fold risk of death. And the fact that women are risking their lives to be heard instead of ignored and mistreated by their doctors is a problem that will remain unchecked unless something is done. And if we're being real, I do wish that I could buy a $90 pack of vitamins from Goop called Balls in the Air and magically be cured of all my ailments. But while their vitamins are scarily pricey, Goop is well known for actively listening to their customers and changing the products in order to fit them. Unfortunately, not everyone is as open and receiving as the company that sells vampire repellent spray. As a BBC article wrote, "The most dangerous aspect of having your pain dismissed is that once the doctor thinks it is in your head, they stop looking for an answer altogether." I remember when I was younger, I managed to hurt my foot while I was playing soccer, which I'd done many times before, but this was different. It hurt. I had to go to the doctor. Once there, they did one x-ray and told me there was nothing wrong and that all I needed to do was elevate my foot and pop an Advil every once in a while. So I left the doctor's that day with a pat on the head and a shiny new sticker. But about 2 months later, I wound up in a pediatric emergency urgent care in the middle of Kansas City during a soccer tournament because the pain in my foot was so unbearable. But once again, they put me in a temporary boot and said there's nothing wrong, but I could rest it for a week if it would make me feel better. It wasn't until a month later, after my mom begged our doctor to a referral to a foot specialist, was I told that I had been walking on a broken foot for 3 months. It took so long to get a diagnosis just because the doctors didn't believe me when I told them it hurt. And yes, 3 months is a very long time to wait for a diagnosis. But if my pain had stemmed from a female-oriented issue, I would likely have had to fight for over 10 years just to receive an accurate medical diagnosis. And today, there are countless stories of women who still have to fight every day just to make sure their doctors are listening to them. And countless stories of women who already lost that fight. And now, I don't have a magic wand I can wave that will magically fix the healthcare system. It's not a simple case of doing better. It will take time and constant fighting. So, how can we fix it? First, we have to make our voices heard. Women are often told to suffer in silence, but only by speaking up and making noise will we actually be listened to. Women often struggle to have their voices heard, even in the professional world. In 2015, Dr. Adris de Hoven was elected as the first female chair of the World Medical Association, and it was her who said that the most dangerous aspect of change is letting it happen to us instead of because of us. We have to actively start the conversation and be willing to look our doctors in the eye and tell him that we know something is wrong. And we not have to fight not just the doctors, but the very system that supports them. It wasn't until 2010 that sex discrimination in healthcare was illegal. We can even fight the system through the power of the internet. In 2009, Angie Firmalino was implanted with a birth control device, Assure. Only, it migrated to her uterus and caused massive internal trauma. So, she created a Facebook group of over 36,000 other women who felt as though their experiences and pain with Assure were not taken seriously by their doctors. They attacked the company and how it was cleared by the FDA. Later, she found out that the FDA hearings had been videotaped, but the company that owned the tapes would only release them to her for several $100s. So, she posted in the Facebook group chat, asking for donations in order to buy the video and expose the company. And together, they raised $900 in 15 minutes. So, change is possible, but only if we keep fighting. And was it fair that women were cursed with pain and men with work? Definitely not. But Eve's initial biting of the apple is what gave so many women the strength, wisdom, and knowledge to use our voices and be heard. And today, I used my voice as we discussed just how dangerous it is when women's pain is dismissed and ways to try and fix that so that we are actually heard. And so, many women today often avoid going to the doctor out of fear of being told that they're a hypochondriac or that it's all in their head. But the most important thing to remember is that you know your body. You know when it's telling you that something is wrong. And so go to the doctor. It's better to be told you're wrong than to find out too late.